in the lungs itself. It's just a description of symptoms, basically, as far as I can tell. So it's the
Hmm.
ratio, and he said it's supposed to be 1 to 2. So, for example, if you're given 100% oxygen, but only 50% is being absorbed, that checks that box. Um,
Hmm.
Bilateral infiltrates is
Hmm.
2. And then he was saying for the third one that no RDS is explained by heart issues. So
Hmm.
in his eyes, he doesn't think it's ARDS. But I agree with you, Paul. As far as I can tell, obviously I'm not on the front lines, but it does seem a very individualistic problem, depending on so many variables and so many factors.
It is individualistic because you have COVID-19 patients that have the neurological issue but don't have the pulmonary.
Mm.
You have COVID-19 patients that have intestinal issues and don't have the pulmonary problem. So, how do you treat those? So that's what I'm saying is that this non-ARDS may be actually near the end stage of this disease progression.
Yeah, like
Well,
it doesn't show
you
until
may
the
have
end.
early on, and maybe maybe an ARDS situation, or how do you explain the cases where they don't even need intubation,
Yeah,
but they're definitely sick, but they have the pneumonia, and I've seen the CT scans. You've seen them. I mean, they have the pneumonia, but they don't need the intubation. So what are they? Are they
yeah.
non-ARDS? I mean, so I don't think it's really clear on how to classify these different cohorts.
Mhm.
I think that's the problem is that it's not a cookie cutter issue here.
Do you
And
think that
there's multiple pathways this thing is
the
infecting.
immune people should be tested more? I think that they should be tested more and studied more, don't you? As to why these people are carrying it or not getting sick at all.
If you're testing more for like an antibody or for to see if they're
Yeah, just
are
to
you talking about an
anything.
RT? Are you talking about an antibody test? Or are you talking about the RT PCR?
It could be an antibody test, but just identifying asymptomatic carriers and studying as to why
Uh-huh.
why they are not showing any symptoms. Because I think that could answer a lot of questions.
Hmm.
Maybe there's a
Hmm.
common denominator that they share.
Well, I think you're right. The more people we test, the better resolution of what exactly is happening. Because if we may find that the conclusions from the Chinese were right, that it truly is type A versus type O blood.
Hmm.
Type A gets higher incidence. But we're basing it on a Chinese study. We don't know if that's true or not, and it might be something very specific to the Asian population. But we have enough different ethnicities in the United States that if you just do a massive testing and have a really good database to understand what's going on, you could see, well, you know what? It is type A for this and this ethnic group, but it's type B for this and this ethnic group. So
Yeah,
we don't know that, and that's a big signal because different different blood types will have different antigens. That's why certain people can't get certain blood because your antibodies will fight the donation, the blood donation. So there may be something, and I've said this a little while back, that those antigens may be carriers that hold the virus. We call them protein. There's protein carriers, so you can have a protein floating around in the body. Okay, and
just a quick
sometimes
recap question. So an antigen is present after the virus has been defeated in somebody's body, correct?
no, the antigen is if you're looking at it from the point of view of antibodies, the antigen is what the antibody is trying to attach. The antibody is what the immune system makes.
Right.
The antigen in this case that we're talking about is the pathogen, the S spike protein. Okay. All right. So, but we have antigens are just the antithesis of an antibody.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
The mace ball that is the corona.
Yeah. So we have these antigens also on our cells, but they're for signaling. For signaling or for attachment or whatever, to communicate. There's lots of different reasons why. But these red blood cells, certain red blood cells will have certain types of antigens. Well, they could be carriers. They could attach things and carry them around. So we have carrier proteins that are in the blood that need a carrier to have them transport, or a hormone that has to be attached to a polypeptide or a protein to carry it. And then there is an enzyme that breaks the carrier connection, and then the hormone can get in
and invade,
or some other, Yeah. But this is how the body communicates naturally. So it's possible that there's something on the red blood cell that is a carrier for the virus, and then because it's holding it, instead of just that virus floating around by the red blood cell, but if it attaches, then it has a higher possibility that if it finds a CD147 receptor, it gets in and then starts to infect the red blood cell. So it could be that those antigens on the type A blood type could be that affinity carrier
could be high.
About it could be higher than any other group, and then it gives you the more probability that it's next to a CD147 receptor or something else, and it'll go into the cell. So I still am following the line of thought that what's causing the non-ARDS is the red blood cells being infected through the CD147 pathway.
Yeah. Did you see Fauci on the news this morning at all? I was talking to Doc McCann.
I didn't see him on the news recently, but I did see a couple YouTube videos about Fauci, saying that he's been asked by journalists saying, were you writing checks to Wuhan Institute?
Yeah, they asked him research. If it was man-made too, the virus.
Yeah. And he couldn't name the paper.
Yeah.
But the paper that he's referring to was the paper that I spent 2.5 hours debunking live. He
also didn't answer the question either.
Yeah, right. But I was so confident about it. It's a cover-up. This thing is a cover-up, and I'll tell you why it's a cover-up. There was research development for weapons in the United States. You know the story. At Fort Detrick, in collaboration with North Carolina, with Dr. Xi. The program is turned off by Obama. Fauci is completely involved in this, and it gets transferred over to other labs. One of the labs is the Wuhan Institute, which is where the P4 lab is. All right. And Fauci writes checks to different research centers to understand the gain of function that we weren't going to do in the United States. So it was kind of like waterboarding, if you want to use it that way. Remember, we couldn't do waterboarding here, but we could do waterboarding in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, but also the waterboarding was being done by a foreign state, not by us. So it's even worse.
But that's true. But we were funding it.
Yeah,
we paid them to do it.
That's so stupid, bro. That is so dumb.
His signature on the check. That's the point.
That's like giving your enemy like all the weapons or the keys to your house.
It's if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, they were doing this for at least 25 years to the United States to gut the manufacturing in so many different industries. For me, it was automotive when I was an automotive engineer, but it also happened in pharmaceuticals. We do still have a pretty big pharmaceutical industry, but New Jersey is a shell now compared to where it used to be.
Yeah, China makes most of our pills, I think.
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff was made in New Jersey, with the pharmaceutical companies there. So we have been seeing the shelling out of America.
Yeah.
All right, and this technology transfer primarily to China and India. Now, India is a little bit more geopolitically aligned with us.
Yeah. They also have better scientists.
China is not
geopolitically not at all
aligned to us.
They're not aligned with anyone geopolitically except themselves.
Right. So you step back and, forget about the science side of it, and you wonder, well, why and who are orchestrating this gutting of America? One is they benefit financially because they know where to put the money, because they're going to be the ones. Well, like for example, why is Fauci pushing Moderna versus directed bios?
Can you want to explain that, Paul? Moderna versus directed bios?
All right. Directed bios is the one that's saying that they can create a vaccine that's antibody vaccine, where they just give you antibodies, versus the messenger RNA, where your body has to produce the antibodies, and they can Trojan horse a reverse transcriptase or do something else.
Yeah, or anything.
Yeah, right. So why is he pushing that? Or why did Fauci not really put the positive light on hydroxychloroquine? I mean, there is some benefit of hydroxychloroquine with Z-Pak and the zinc.
And the asymmetric risk, too, is so large. It's like if you're maybe a couple hours from dying, like, you're going to take anything. You're going to try anything. So, yeah, it makes no sense why you would do that.
So he's on the take. He knows it. When the Fort Detrick shut down the weapons program and they started transferring it over for further development of P4, they also provided information to other tech companies, biotech companies. So we've had SARS for a long time. They couldn't come up with a vaccine. Then all of a sudden, on record timing, they come up with a vaccine? No. They had pieces of this since 2014, maybe even longer, that these companies had, and they were like going, oh, well, maybe something's going to happen here.
Well, the original SARS was what, 03, right?
I don't know probably okay. That's probably right.
I think it was 02 or 03.
Yeah. So, they still don't have a vaccine for that. And the replicase is better for SARS than for, let's say, influenza. So if they say, well, it's the same problem as influenza, it mutates too much. No, that's not true. It will mutate, but it's not going to mutate as much, because the replicase has more efficiency. But it takes a long time to develop vaccines. Long time. So it almost seems to me that we have to follow the money. Who are the CEOs? Who are the researchers? And and which hedge fund companies started putting in options right after or around the time of Event 201? Because I still believe Event 201 was forward operation signal. And those people would have started buying options in these companies that are going to be testing this stuff. Okay. Now, no one knew about Wuhan back then, or they shouldn't have.
I mean, yeah,
right?
I don't know about no one,
so,
but
so it would be very curious to understand, was there an uptick in option activity with the C-suite in these companies or the hedge funds, where they got the wink from
similar to 9/11.
Yep, exactly. And by law, they have to file a K report. I think it's a K10 or 10K, I think it is. It's been a while. So I think it's a 10K report. Maybe it's a 5K, but I think it's a 10K. But in that report, it states that they bought X amount of shares of different companies or their company, and that's public record. So people could go to these different companies, go on their website, download their 10K and or a similar document, and look down at who's in the C-suite that has to file, and see, did they purchase more stock or options in their company.
Do you think this ties in at all to 7E, as it were? I mean...
E7?
Yeah, what are you calling it now?
E7.
E7?
Yeah. So is it tied to E7?
Or do you think this is being blown out of proportion?
See, you have to parse it. The ones that say that that E7 is creating the virus, no, that's not true. The ones that like the Kaufmans, that or
did he actually say that? Dr. Kaufman did?
Well, he's basically saying that E7 is causing a increase in exosomes, and that the exosomes are the virus. That's where he landed, because he doesn't believe in germ theory. So
one of those.
Yeah. So it's an easy test. You have people that are
it's a litmus test
to E7
for biologists.
It's a really easy test. You expose people with no E7, no exposure as a control group. You expose with E7 and measure their measure their
viral load, right?
Their viral load. Then you expose someone with no E7, but you give them SARS-CoV-2 in a vial. And then you expose them with E7, wait a little bit, maybe 14 days or whatever, and then expose them to SARS-CoV-2. Yeah. And I think what you would see in this test is obviously the control, no E7 and no CoV-2, you're not going to get...
Nothing's going to happen.
SARS. Yeah. E7, you're not going to have CoV-2, SARS-CoV-2. The E7 with CoV-2, I think would be a very interesting case, because I believe that electromagnetic radiation does cause inflammation for some people, and it depends on the frequency of the exposure and the intensity of the exposure. So we do know this is fact that electromagnetic radiation will create ROS, reactive oxygen species. It's why we take antioxidants to quell that ROS, to reduce that inflammation, because what that will do is that it will add to aging. It will create apoptosis. We will get older quicker. All right.
So it'd be safe to say you are not for 7E, E7
or E7. I'm not for E7, but I do think that I'm not for it for two reasons. One, I don't like the idea of electromagnetic radiation affecting my health by, creating a pro-inflammatory response, because you can measure it in your blood and you'll get more NF-kappa. And NF-kappa, when you have enough of it, will lead to diseases.
Do you test your own blood, Doc?
No. But I could. I mean, but no. Now, you can get these like little machines that like on Amazon and stuff.
Yeah, I know. There's a Precision Extra, it's called, which people use to measure their ketones, millimolars of ketones. Right. If you want to go into ketosis.
I haven't done that. I don't. I understand the ketosis thing, and you got to worry about getting too acidic, because if you go into ketosis, you're not going through the TCA cycle. You're creating a lot of lactate that'll bring up your they'll bring up, it'll increase your acidity in your
Yeah,
blood.
I know it's dangerous to attempt to go into ketosis but fail, because it's like a binary thing where like you have to make sure you're not eating too many carbs, or your brain will, or your body is not going to be able to make use of ketones as energy. And I've read that even on the avocado can put people out of ketosis depending on their body and makeup. But I guess I was just asking the blood testing question because it seems to me it would be golden in a situation like this for people to have extensive knowledge about their blood and to get their blood tested regularly to get those blood markers. But I just don't understand why we can't do that. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, the thing is, there's so much in your blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and depending on, it's very transitory too. That's why they're always doing blood work if you're in the hospital to understand, if your communication between your different organs are right. I mean, they're measuring tons of stuff in your blood. I mean, and there's tons of stuff that they don't know what to look for. I mean, there's lots in our blood, a lot of proteins
that are not understood.
That are unknown, because they're in micro concentrations, versus macro concentrations.
It's pretty mind blowing.
But back to EC7, there's a lot of, and that's a field in itself.
But back to E7.
Yeah, E7. So my stance on it is that I don't like the pro-inflammatory issue with electromagnetic radiation, but I'm even more concerned about the civil liberties issue. You cannot, the way E7 works, if it was fully implemented, is you cannot opt out. With 4G, you can opt out. You could just turn off your phone, just not use it. Once E7 is fully implemented and you have truly the Internet of Things, and everywhere, all devices you have are connected, all devices that you're using have a camera on it, everywhere you go outside your house is surveilled, you will never ever opt out. You can't.
Oh yeah, that's the point of no return.
That's why I am totally against it. Is that you're not in a situation where you're giving consent.
Yeah. And as I understand it too, it's not like 4G in that you can set up these towers, one big tower every, I don't even know how long it is, but I guess for 5G now, and I don't know if you know anything about this, Paul, they have to set them up more frequently, but in greater numbers.
Mm-hmm. And that's right.
It reminds me of the argument between like AC versus DC current back in the day. Like having many kind of hubs for current as opposed to what actually won, which was AC or Tesla. It reminds me of that. Just the makeup and the spread of the energy of less bigger hubs of energy versus smaller ones spread out.
I use the analogy AM versus FM radio.
Okay. Yeah.
AM, you get actually a larger.
Yeah, slow and bigger waves, right? Yeah. Whereas like FM's like.
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit close. The analogy is a little bit closer to AM and FM.
No, oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't even know if it's an analogy because you're literally talking about waves, EM waves too, right? And that's when I asked my physics teacher in high school, I actually emailed him last week and talked to him about this. And he basically said that you can kind of see it as a meter for danger with, gamma rays being the worst and 5G being further down that spectrum of wavelengths. He also went on to say further that it has been shown long-term to have cancerous effects and leukemia, just in case anybody was wondering about that. But that's all he said on it, and he's really a guy who's quite apolitical and really smart. So that's all I can say definitively right now that I know about.
And it falls right in line with the ROS. It creates a more oxidation in your cells, and causes things to go wrong. Now, if you have enough things go wrong, we have these checkpoints in the cell to prevent it from going into cancer. But if you have enough things going wrong, the checkpoints don't work anymore, and it will start to divide. So if you have enough inflammation or enough oxygen species, what will happen is that you'll have a tumor start to grow. And once it starts to grow, then all these new cells will start to create. Each one of those cancer cells has kind of a new genome. There's lots of things that are going on, especially if it's a rapid tumor. So if you take a tissue sample and you look at 10 different cells within that tumor, you may find 5 or 6 different types of genomes, because your chromosomes are breaking at all these different spots and gluing together on another chromosome. So it's like creating this like really strange chimeric kind of thing, in each one of these tumors. So it's dangerous. I mean, so again, it's about the intensity. The intensity is like gamma. That's really intense. Yeah. You don't have to have much of it, and you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a measure of intensity and duration.
Yeah. And what do you think about David Icke? Have you seen that his interview got taken down, Paul, last week?
With London Real.
Yeah.
You're talking about? Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm for freedom of speech. I mean, definitely for freedom of speech. It shouldn't have been taken down. But I also think that London Real and David Icke were using it as a way to get attention. But it backfired. Because, London Real, I find that London Real, he rubs me kind of the wrong way. There's something about him that just doesn't jive. He's very promotional. He's very, he seems like a con man. He just,
what's weird is I watched him years ago, bro. It's like, what was that? It must have been 2014 now, or I think it was 2014, when he actually had a partner on his show. And I much preferred his show when it was him and this other guy. And when it switched to just him, I didn't like it. It was he got a lot more formal and started wearing the suit. And I really liked the informal, like they did something like this, And he had this great interview with Robert Greene. It's one of my favorite Robert Greene interviews, and I would highly recommend people go check that out. But yeah, he did change his style as he got bigger and bigger and more popular. Because, dude, I followed him when he had not very many people following him at all. And I was mind blown because I was like, man, he has all these great interviews with, he had Hodge Gracie, this MMA guy. He's arguably the greatest jiu-jitsu artist of all time. Robert Greene, my favorite author, and he only had like a few thousand followers, and I was like, dang, why don't people... But now, and this kind of ties back to what we were talking earlier about the podcast, they just keep getting bigger, this audio space, And I do think it's cool, but yeah, just tying back to what you said about Brian Rose and London Real, he has gotten a little more kind of surfacey, I guess, in like businessman-y promo guy type of thing, where it's like, I don't know... If you're going to be like that, just be like that from the start kind of thing, I don't know.
I view people, when they're in a dangerous situation, how do they react? That's how I judge people.
Yeah.
And he states in his documentary, that he had substance abuse problems. Okay, I can understand that. People have had substance abuse problems and got their act together, and that's something to commend.
Yeah.
But he... was in New York. Let's backtrack. He does an undergrad at MIT, so he's a smart guy. He's not a dumb guy, and I think he had all A's, so that's even crazier. But I mean, but the thing is that he's a smart guy. I'm not putting him down on that, but he never was an engineer. He got an engineering degree, but he never was an engineer like I was.
I didn't even know that he went to MIT.
yeah. But he never was a practicing engineer.
I
So
thought he was a
he's
finance guy, wasn't he in
right.
finance?
That's the point. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm painting a story about him.
Okay.
So he goes to MIT. He's smart. I'm not saying he's not, but he doesn't practice engineering like a lot of people in Detroit. Actually built something. You know, you
That's what
know,
engineering
and,
is.
and yeah, or worked at NASA and designed rockets or something. So he didn't do anything like that. So what he did was he cashed in. Okay, so let's put that on the monetary side, you know, of his personality. So he goes to New York to be a broker, all right, or to work in the in banking, all right. He wasn't doing very well, all right, and somehow he had some side business that was dealing with real estate also. So a lot of these brokers, what they do is they do real estate on the side. They're doing some IB stuff, and they're trying to make it big. That they're and you can imagine with his personality right now what kind of attitude he had as a broker, or an IB guy, investment banking type in New York City, all right, in the 90s. You can just imagine this, all right. So this is where he gets in his substance abuse issue, all right. Then fast forward to 9/11. He's in New York. He has substance abuse issues, and he gets on his according to his documentary, he gets on to the rooftop of his building. It might be in Tribeca. I'm not positive, but he can see down to the
Twin Towers.
the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, and he said that he saw them go down, and he was drinking whiskey while it was going down. And I'll tell you what, that's a fucking asshole. That is a fucking asshole. Because if I wasn't in New York when that happened, I was technically I was living in South Korea, but when 9/11 happened. But I'll tell you what, if I was in New York, the very first thing I would do was be going down to help people. That's just my personality, and I think anyone that listens to my channel kind of knows my personality. And so when London Real thinks that he's doing the real good work and the for mankind, by having David Icke, talking about E7, and how it's disrupting people's endocrine systems or whatever. He's all show. He's all show, because when push came to shove, he wasn't there for people during 9/11.
He said that on his documentary, Paul?
Yes. This is the
Jesus.
documentary he's talking about. He's training for.
If I did that, I would never tell anybody that.
I don't know. He's a fucking asshole. And I'll tell you what, I would love to interview him and say, why didn't you go down to ground zero and help people?
Well, I'm all for people changing and giving people. I think second chances is important because we do live in a cancel culture. But yeah, man, I don't know and that's great that he beat his addiction, which hopefully he's not still struggling with it. But yeah, man, if I did that, I would not tell anyone.
In the documentary, he's talking about his financial problems, and he was so worried that it was going to hurt his business.
Yeah. Well, that's him being vulnerable too, and showing that fault, which I think credit to him for that. But yeah, all I can speak on is.
But the thing is that you got to look at the whole picture. Smart guy, MIT, all A's, doesn't use the engineering degree, goes into finance thinking he's going to make it big, can't, because he realizes that it's about behavior and it's not about engineering. Trading is about behavior. It's behavioral finance.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding psyop games in the trading world. All right, everyone's looking one way and you have to look the other way. You have to always think the opposite. It's not like engineering where it's like A plus B equals C.
Concrete.
It's not trading.
Yeah.
So these engineers that come out of MIT, they do terrible usually in finance.
I didn't know that was a trend for MIT engineers to do that.
Well, no, it's very big, because what happens is they try to get them out. They're really good at the mathematics, and that and they try to build up these quant systems. But almost every quant fund blows up because it's running on a mathematical model that the market really doesn't run on. It may run on it for a certain duration, and something happens. So the best way to handle the market is use behavioral finance theory. So there's a lot of research on that. All right, but he's one of those ones that thinks that he can really think about the market, how it's going to, how it's going to really trade. Bullshit. So so there's this bigger picture to understand him. You have to look at. So he really thinks highly of himself in the middle of a crisis. And then another thing is that once things got tough for him, fast forward to Lehman, all right? So he's still in New York, all right? Something happens during Lehman, and I think he loses his job. Then he calls a friend that's in London to help him get into IB in London. That's when he leaves New York. So he ran away. He wasn't, I keep on stating on some of my videos on my channel, there's two types of New York. What creates a New Yorker? You don't have to be born in New York.
You just have to live there for a year, right?
Right. No. So like most people think you have to live there for 10 years. Or some people say that you have to live there for a year. No. You can be a New Yorker in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In 30 seconds. Because all you have to do is just realize that it's tough, but you're going to persevere and stay. You could be born a New Yorker and you don't have, you have some sort of thing that happens in your life and you go run away. Well, no, you were born a New Yorker, but you ran away, so you're no longer a New Yorker.
Is that how it works?
You stay a New Yorker by persevering. So Lehman happens, and he ends up in London. How I understand the story is that he ends up in London now, and then
after 08,
he's doing that for a little while, and then all of a sudden he starts London Real. So I'm seeing the bigger picture. Smart guy, never used his engineering degree. Thinks that he was going to make it big in finance, was terrible at it, not only in New York, but also in London. When push came to shove and people needed his help, he didn't help.
Did you?
9/11, aka 9/11.
Yeah. And you've been following him for a minute, Paul? How do you know all this about him? Just because of his documentary?
I was watching his documentary about triathlons. He was training for a triathlon, so that was because I was doing triathlon. I'm familiar with triathlons. I just thought it would be an interesting documentary, and he started telling about his life. So it was like he was training for this triathlon, but it was also therapeutic of him admitting some of the things that he did in his life to his wife that she never knew about. So it was a very good documentary. It's a great documentary. But the thing is that it shines a light on what his real personality is. He's a schmuck. My grandmother would say he's a schmuck.
A schmuck.
I don't care if he,
That's a Midwestern word right there.
So he knows how to manipulate. He knows how to market.
He's a marketer. Yeah, he is a marketer.
Both of them were being media whores. David Icke probably wanted to.
But what do you think about what he said, David Icke? Because I've seen some of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing. And
see, it's like 2 hours long.
Yeah,
I have only seen just bits and pieces. So I'm taking it out of context, and that's not fair. But what I've heard was that there is a quote conspiracy, which I agree with, that E7 is being used to control us and erode our civil liberties. He's right on that, 100% right on that. And he's saying that there are institutions that's hiding the effects of E7 on the body. He's 100% right on that too. Where he goes wrong is when he starts talking about viruses don't exist, and he's starting to promote this Kaufman theory.
Oh wow, I didn't know he was doing that. Yeah.
So I mean, and saying that the RT-PCR test is bogus, that it's not testing for SARS-CoV-2. And everyone that says this, I ask them, what's the FAM sequence that they're using to probe to know? And if someone's saying, if they can't tell you that how many locations on the genome that they're testing for, and what the FAM sequence probe is for the PCR, then they're talking bullshit, because they don't know what they're talking. You have to have a 24 nucleotide FAM sequence to lock in for that to know if you have the right genome. All right, and they're saying, well, that when they're doing the PCR, they're testing for only COVID. They're only testing for regular coronavirus, not SARS-CoV-2. Well, no, they're testing the S spike protein and the envelope protein and other areas on the genome, and they're doing like 2 or 3 areas of the genome. Well, what's the probability of randomly getting a FAM sequence on a genome for regular coronavirus when you're doing this 2 or 3 areas, like really small, and it has to lock in completely? It's a 24 nucleotide sequence, so it can't be that's for it to be random. It's 1 divided by 4 to the 24th power.
Could you send me the genome website, Paul? Because someone actually requested this on my channel too. They were wondering if they could look at the genome, because I do think some people have an interest in looking at the structure of it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But also on the CDC website, it has the protocols and what the test kit number is. So there's different protocols where you can they'll tell you what the primer is, what is called the forward primer and the reverse primer. So you have this sequence, and you have a primer that comes on, and that codes this way, and then you have another primer, the reverse primer, that codes this way. All right, and in between is the FAM sequence, the 24 nucleotide FAM sequence that's fluorescent. Well, that fluorescence, as the forward primer, or as the primer gets closer to it, it will break off and let it fluoresce. All right, when it does that, that's how you know that you got the right sequence. All right, and you do this 2 or 3 times in different areas of the genome, in the areas that we're talking about that have been bioengineered. And I have went to the CDC website and I've looked at the FAM sequence. All right, and they're in those areas. So when someone says that they're testing for regular coronavirus, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because all you got to do is say, what's the FAM sequence, and look at it in the genome, and you'll notice that it's in the area that we keep on saying that was bioengineered. So Ike doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. You know, all you got to do is just go to the CDC website and look at, they give you the code.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is really dangerous is for people to, if they find one thing that they disagree with someone on, is they discredit everything that person is saying, which I'm not saying you're doing that, but it makes finding the truth that much more difficult, because David Icke could be saying 80% truth. And
well, he's saying he is saying 80% truth, because he's right about E7 taking away your civil liberties, and they're hiding research on how E7 affects your body. That's complete. He's completely right on that. Yeah. But when he starts talking that germ theory doesn't exist, and
that's crazy to me. Not only him, but Dr. Young too. We had a Dr. Robert Young on the coronavirus roundtable. I think it was not this yesterday, but last week, and likewise, he doesn't believe in germ theory. So there's germ theory and then environment theory, correct?
Or Tourette. I think Dr. Karen said terrestrial theory. He calls it terrestrial theory.
Okay,
which is a strange name. It's a strange name to use, but I would say I would use the term environmental theory.
Yeah, I don't know if that's right, but you learn this.
He called it terrestrial theory versus germ theory.
Okay, yeah. So germ theory versus terrain theory.
Or terrain theory. Yeah, that's right.
And
terrain theory.
It bothers me because I can't remember her name, but I took a microbiome class in high school, and that's one of the first things we learned was basically those two schools of thought was germ theory versus terrain theory, and the fact that germ theory is what exists in the universe.
Right. I mean, it's very easy to debunk Young and Kaufman. You can take a healthy person, and you can take, because they're saying that it's really you're infected, you're You're infected because your system is down and is producing its exosomes. Something is producing an exosome, and that's what's causing the infection. They're mixing apples and oranges here. All right. You're sick and you do excrete or exocytose exosomes, but those exosomes are those are part of the way the cytokines are released. And when we talk about cytokines, that's part of the mechanism. These cells,
the immune response,
they make cytokines, and they have to exocytose out. And they use these Golgi. I use the term Golgi vesicles, but Kaufman uses MVBs. But the same thing. The bottom line is that these cells, certain cells, immune cells, will produce cytokines, and they will use these exosomes to create the pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory response. So they're right about that. All right, but you can have a completely homeostasis individual that's completely healthy, and you give them a virus, and they will get it. So right there kills the theory.
Yeah.
All right, and then not only that, you can see the viruses in an electron microscope.
Do you think these guys are crisis actors? Because it's that moronic. Is it not?
Well, I don't know about Young and his background.
Yeah.
But Kaufman's MIT. And I think he's undergrad at MIT. Where he went for his MD, I'm not sure, but it's in psychiatry. So he's it's not internal medicine, it's not a surgeon, it's not oncology, it's not
it's drug dealing.
I mean So on the spectrum, a psychic is closer to a psychiatrist than, let's say, an internal medicine doctor. But I'm just shocked on how could you graduate from medical school thinking that germ theory doesn't exist, because
it's so
you're
absurd.
studying so much. Yeah, you're studying so much about pathogens.
It's like they're trolling, like they're trying to be trolls,
I don't know about Young, but I get that feeling about Kaufman. I feel as though he is to try to plant a seed in the flat earther community that the virus doesn't exist, and therefore, to create division within the truther community. Because in essence, we are in a truther community. I don't even like the term truther, but the
I think we all are, aren't we? We're all trying to find the truth, and we can't. And like you said, we're just getting more polarized.
Yeah, but there's one of the characteristics of the quote the truthers is they stay away from mainstream media, and they're more in the underground or
like
alternative
QAnon.
media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, and even our channels fit in this category.
Alternative media.
I know people that say they won't listen to mainstream, but they'll listen to you or I or Atwood or other channels.
I think there's a demand for it, definitely.
Yeah.
Because people they don't trust anything that they say.
Well, it's a combination. It's one. A lot of these channels that are popping up like ours, there's authenticity to it. It's not sound bites. It's not like 30-second sound bite and then a commercial.
Yeah.
And we have a conversation that can go as long as we want it to go. If on a
dialectical.
Topic, yeah. And and you can have these panels and round tables. It's closer to the Oxford model of presenting information.
Yeah.
Than this, American mainstream media 30-second,
fast food version.
Because you can't. I could never do, let's say, Fox News or CNN, because I talk too damn long.
Yeah, right.
There's no way I could condense what I want to say.
You just get cut off.
One sentence. Yeah, I would just keep on babbling. And, because what they want to hear, like, is David Icke bad or good? And the way I answer it is just neither.
Right.
There's a lot of things that he said is really good. I like David Icke. I even mentioned that, in my video. But when it comes to saying that viruses don't exist and the RT-PCR isn't working, he's 100% wrong on that. So, So it's not binary. And the problem with
Yeah.
mainstream is it's very binary. They want to divide us.
Divide and conquer. That seems to be the goal.
That's why I think Kaufman is trying to.
Yeah,
They
that's why
realize
I
that
asked.
mainstream isn't doing it because we're not listening to mainstream. A lot of the people that are listening to this underground thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? They get people like Dr. Kaufman to infiltrate, get them on a channel talking about crazy stuff, and then you'll divide part of the community. You'll have this one side, saying viruses don't exist, and you have another side proving that they do exist, but they're battling each other instead of focusing on the real problem,
the real villains.
Fauci,
Yeah,
the real villain, which is Fauci. We all need to realize that we the ones that believe in the terrain theory or germ theory, we're all in this together, and we're trying to make sure that our civil liberties do not get eroded, and that our health isn't at risk. I think everyone could agree on that. So instead of spending the time to fight each other, we need to spend the time to shine the light on Fauci and the money that he was sending to Wuhan for this weapons development. I mean, literally, he has blood on his hands. Literally.
Yeah, no doubt. And not just him, these other leaders too, the Surgeon General, the WHO, no doubt. Not the band, the WHO.
Right. Tedros, yeah.
Yeah, not Tedros. But, yeah, I don't know, man. It's... I don't know how this is going to end. I have no idea.
Well, I don't know either. I think it may go on forever and ever and ever.
I had a really scary thought. Is like, what if, say there is a cabal, we're going off that premise, or globalist, communist conspiracy. What if they're waiting until we get complacent, like collectively, Like...
that's definitely a tactic,
mm-hmm.
all right. And the American attention span is like a goldfish.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're going to forget. But I think
we're going to forget we're on lockdown. Half of us.
They did. I'm still on the side that it was accidentally leaked. But as time goes on, I am moving more and more towards it was purposely leaked. All right. But either way, if it was accidentally leaked or purposefully leaked, they still can use it as an opportunity to roll in their agenda. Well, what's that agenda? They already told us it's Agenda 21 and this one world government, all right? And there's a lot of information on how EcoHealth Alliance and Fauci and US Aid and the NIH and Rockefeller and Bill Gates and all of them are part of this, all right? That goes all the way back to 2004. So there's enough evidence to state the case, enough circumstantial evidence to state the case that this was orchestrated. All right. Now, I think that they wanted us to get on some sort of drug therapy that's like a cocktail. Once they find out that it's AIDS-like, it's a blood disease, they get us on a cocktail for a while, and then they go, you know what, that vaccine isn't working. So everyone prophylactically needs to be on 3 medications. All right. So it's a boon for those companies that are making those medications. Then they come out with the vaccine. But they're going to say, you have to take this stuff or you're not going to be going to work. You're either taking the drugs or you're taking the vaccine, and you're going to be, that will, by that time, they can implement this chip idea. And it's a perfect entrance for chipping. They're going to say, well, we're going to have to vaccinate the whole population of the United States, so we can't just trust, just a piece of paper. We are going to have this in a database. And they're going to say, okay, you know what? We're going to use an RFID chip or something like it that's under your skin.
Yeah.
So where do we go as citizens? I don't think that they counted on this underground network being able to expose some of the things that they were saying. They didn't think that some guy in New York taking a bioinformatics class in at Harvard could uncode what happened in like 5 minutes out of their own database. But that's what happened. That's what I did. So, and then there's lots of people that have been involved. It's not just me, but there's been lots of people that have been shining the light in different ways, like George Webb, and and showing the connections of Fauci. Doctors that are on the front line saying, hey, this is weird. People that are sharing the CT scans. I'll tell you. I mean, I've showed you some. These CT scans are not normal. There's something radically different that's going on.
Their lungs are getting just ravaged.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's really crazy. You're hearing all these stories that are taking place now. There's something real happening. People are starting to wake up. People are starting
slowly,
to go, that their wealth is starting to be destroyed. Because of they don't have a job, they're not going to work, or the stock market crashed for them and all that.
Yeah.
I don't think they counted on people galvanizing through social media, through this kind of stuff, to shine a light on them, because they try to do the same kind of playbook as they did for 9/11. But 9/11, we didn't have all this technology.
What do you mean by playbook, Paul? Because I was quite young when that happened. But what do you mean by similar playbook to 9/11?
Well, they had it orchestrated and they let it happen. They they stirred up a bunch of terrorists and they didn't shut it down. They allowed it they allowed it to happen so they can roll in this Patriot Act and
save the day.
And save the day and have a never-ending war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So
which is still going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was orchestrated. I think 9/11 was orchestrated. We stood down and allowed it to happen. Cheney had the Pentagon stand down and not shoot those planes out of the sky. So, and then, Tower 7 was pre-wired. Why do you pre-wire a building in New York?
Yeah.
It had to be pre-wired because it was pulled down.
Yeah, I just started researching that. I've been watching channels on it, and they found evidence of steel melted from thermate.
Yeah.
And not only that, but all of these first responders that give firsthand eyewitness accounts and ear witness accounts, if one can say that, of hearing this explosion too. And it's just like, you're telling me all of those people are going against the narrative? Like, the people who were actually there on the ground? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm definitely going to look into it more and do my due diligence, but...
Well, not only that, it was Bush's brother. He was running the security firm for that area.
Jeb?
For the... No, the younger brother. The much younger brother.
Okay.
Wait, I'm not sure. Is Jeb the youngest?
Jeb's the older one, I think.
Jeb is the older.
I think so, yeah.
No, I thought.
Or am I wrong?
I thought Jeb was.
W
is
not the oldest. I know that. I think W is the. Is he the oldest?
Well,
I don't know.
I thought George Bush Jr.
Mm-hmm.
was the oldest. Normally.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I thought Jeb was the second. Then the third son was this one that I'm talking about his name. So, but he was running the security firm for the Twin Towers. The day the contract ends was September 10th. Now, how the hell does that happen? And they were doing construction. They were doing some sort of construction for weeks prior to it. So people think that it was wired with that nanothermite that you're talking about. And it's possibly that's what they did with Tower 7, which is another building that's on that campus. But the bottom line is that something funny happened during 9/11, but we didn't have YouTube, and we didn't have this,
Twitter,
the Twitters and Facebooks and all that, and this underground network that we had. They underestimated the power of our voice
of the people
in the underground of the people. So we are able, and we're seeing it in real time. I'm putting something out, and I'm seeing like 3 days later it's hitting mainstream. Someone's listening. Someone's listening. Now, I don't know who it is, but someone's listening. And it's getting to the President of the United States. Now, I don't know who it is. I don't think Donald Trump is listening to our conversations. Right? I don't think so. All right? But I do think that people that have his ear are. Or have the ear of the ear, Yeah. It's, maybe 3 degrees
in the line somewhere, yeah.
But I'll tell you, I made it very clear when I started doing videos in the end of January what I thought it was. And mainstream media is now saying it. And then the conversations with George Webb and talking about Fort Detrick and and
we're a couple weeks ahead of this, aren't we?
Yeah. So when we start talking about the hydroxychloroquine and it helps with some but not others, we're weeks ahead sometimes.
Which is kind of sad, to be honest, because
well,
we're just some random guys.
But here's the problem I'm getting. I've created so much content on my channel that the way the app works on mobile devices for YouTube, you can only see about 100. You can't see 200. It's hard for them to find my old stuff. And the old stuff shows how I determined that the HIV homology was in there.
Yeah. You need you should get some like real specific playlists going, Paul, and try to organize them that way. Yeah, because you have that many videos. You have way more videos than I do. One thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but when I'm doing my live streams, it's taking longer and longer to process them, and I can't access them on my video page for like sometimes 2 days now.
Yeah. Well, you're tagged. welcome to the club. Because what you'll notice is that certain words that you put in, they'll bounce your video out. What you'll also notice is that it takes longer to process your live streams. Yeah. After you finish.
Yep.
The other thing is that I call it throttling. They'll throttle your premiere. So if you did a recording and then you upload it and then you say you're going to premiere it, it uploads and then it does a processing time, right? Right. If you have a video that's, let's say, an hour long and it's talking about this stuff, you'll start seeing that the processing time takes like 3 or 4 times longer. So it's almost like they're scrubbing it through the process to see if they want to bounce the video or not. You follow what I'm saying? But if you do an hour,
we don't know though. We don't know if they are. But
if you do an hour video about dogs, petting dogs, it processes really quick. So something's not right.
Yeah.
Just try it. Just do an experiment. Film something really benign, like trees, for an hour.
Yeah.
Right? And then film something that's talking about E7 and see the processing time. You'll find the E7 one will process longer than the tree video. Why? Well,
I'm going to test that this week, Paul.
They're testing. Yeah, I do it, and then like do a film of that. Do a film of this test. But what I have noticed is that my processing time radically changed.
What keywords? COVID, Corona.
It's COVID-19. Yeah. It's coronavirus. It's Wuhan, CCP virus. Or
Chinese virus.
Something about E7. E7 does it big time.
No,
I mean Atwood's afraid of certain things because of E7. People talking about E7 because he doesn't want his channel to go down.
I did see that, and he said, I think this was last week now, Paul, that many people, like dozens of people he's worked with for years now, have been demonetized like in the last 2 weeks, which is, I don't know. It just seems like everything's coming together, and like they're just setting up for the night of the long knives, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's a great analogy. That there is a fascist thing happening in our country, and they're going to do some sort of night event to to kill people, or it's going to be a combination of Kristallnacht and
Night of Long Knives,
and the Night of the Long Knives.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we're being rounded up, and I think that's why, me being Jewish, that's why it's so visceral for me. It's just
I didn't know you were Jewish.
I have to act. I mean, when I was starting to hear about the cremations going on in Wuhan, the crematoriums and the deaths and the lies and the, and as I get more educated about it with George Webb, as he's telling me about, who the key players are and where the money was flowing and all that, I'm just like going, I have to do something about this. I mean, we cannot have our citizenry go down into some sort of FEMA camp of forced vaccinations and be chipped. Being chipped is like being numbered in the Holocaust. It's no different.
Yeah.
It's no different.
Yeah, it's not.
And we can't let that happen.
It's worse because you can get tracked.
Yeah. And we can't let this happen. Yeah. We have to somehow, some way, stop it. And what's promising? 2 weeks ago, I was pretty pessimistic, about what was going on. But I'm actually optimistic now. But hearing the mainstream.
It was Fauci. Like 3 weeks ago, or maybe the first week that it was the week before everyone got locked down, and everybody. That was really dark for me because it was kind of when I realized, because honestly, Sean called it a few weeks before. He's like, yo, there's a tidal wave coming. And I was like, dang, I've never seen Sean like this before. He looks kind of scared. And this guy's been in jail. Right. So I was like, okay, that got my attention. But it still took a little bit more time for me to really just snap out of it and be like, dude, you got to wake up and do something, because I'm not going out without somewhat of a fight, Right. And right. I would hesitate to say things like we are getting rounded up, Paul, because I do think we need to remain calm and not incite any sort of not incite anything that could get us in trouble, because we are after peace, but just making use of our liberties while we can. Yeah.
Here's the point. I've been saying from day one on the channel, we have to help our neighbor. We have to, be informed citizens. We have to be engaged. But if the powers that be in our government keep on eroding our constitutional rights, and they go down this road of forced vaccinations, we have no other recourse but to revolt. I mean, I'm telling you, I can sense it happening. There's going to be so many pissed off mothers out there that don't want their kids forced vaccinated.
What about the dudes with guns, like the biker gangs and the militias?
Well, you know what? I think the pissed off mothers are more dangerous than the biker dudes.
Yeah. Most of the time they are, to be honest.
And the thing is that if women's, if let's say their guy, their husband or their boyfriend doesn't want to do anything, okay, she can just cut him off. You know what I mean? She could just cut him off, and and they have the power. I mean, the women have the power.
In relationships, right? They generally do. Yes.
Yeah. So if the woman's saying, I don't want my kids getting forced vax, so Tommy, go out and do something. And Tommy says, well, I just want to, watch reruns on Netflix. And she just says, well, you're not getting any, and Tommy will go, damn, I better do something. So, so I'm assuming that this biological urge, will actually get things moving and actually, get people to realize that, hey, we may be, going down a road of tyranny unless we shine a light and prosecute the people that have been orchestrating this.
And
it's a lot of different people.
In the Spanish, or during the Spanish flu in Philadelphia, actually, it was the mothers who kind of took charge of getting people situated and stuff, because the politicians and the businessmen, they didn't heed the warnings that the wave was coming, and they paid dearly. And kind of in response to that, from what I saw in this documentary, I think it's on YouTube, they organized and got people together and basically became community leaders in that sense.
Mm-hmm. My observation from the people that have sent me emails or have commented on the channel, I would say that I want to say maybe 60% of the ones that got it were females. It was 40% on the male side.
What percent of your viewers are male
like
and
right
female?
away?
Do you
What
know?
I'm talking about is like right away.
Okay.
And they and it took a little longer.
They understood
for the
the
guys
danger.
To get it. Yeah. I think the women actually understood right away what was going on.
Yeah.
And I just think it's motherly instinct.
Yeah.
For some reason, or it might be the motherly instinct coupled with the fluorination and the and lowering of the testosterone in our society. They've kind of so they've kind of put us into a scenario where they want us to be docile and just kind of just accept everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
I just
talking
lost
about
my
males
job.
in general, Paul?
Wait, what?
Are you talking about males at large?
Males in general in the United States.
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. So, so basically there's this endocrine disruption that's going on with fluoride. And when you disrupt your endocrine system, you're not going to be producing the right amounts of testosterone. And for males, they may actually produce more estrogen. Males produce estrogen, but it's primarily testosterone. But if you're lowering your testosterone and slightly increasing your estrogen, it's going to change your behavior, especially when you need to be a K species, when you need to be the sheepdog. So they made the men to the point where there's not enough sheepdogs.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of so what will happen is that you scare them. First you shock them. The shock is this virus. You scare them by they just lost their job. And then now they're going to go, and they're already, in this docile kind of low testosterone phase. So what will happen is they'll go, well, whatever the answer is, government, I'll take it. You want me to have that vaccine so I can get my job back? Okay. Well, a sheepdog would basically say, bow, wow, wow, I'm not getting the vax, and by the way, I'm going to be talking to an attorney and burning down your 5G tower, bow, wow, wow, so we need to start barking.
That's a great way to put it, Paul. Sheepdogs. You know who else described it that way? Is Tim Kennedy. He has if you know who that is, the MMA guy. Yeah, he calls them sheepdogs. That's funny.
Yeah. But he is he's special forces.
Yeah,
he's
alpha
a
male.
Special force guy. Yeah, he's alpha male. He's got a lot of testosterone, and he wants to kick butt. And it would be really cool if we could get on the round table like an ex Navy SEAL guy or
that'd be
guy, and and get a perspective being in the military. And if there was this kind of revolutionary thing that happens in the citizenry because they don't want the forced vaccinations, what would the military really do? Would they follow the government, or would they say, you know what, we're going to follow with the citizens?
That's a great question.
I'm willing to bet that they follow the citizens and not the government.
I think it would come down to the individual, I think, wouldn't it? That seems like a pretty personal choice.
I think at first they'll be following the government because that's how they're trained. But then they'll start realizing that, wait a minute, this is war crime. This is like against the Constitution. I think something will switch and they'll go, you know what, we're not doing it.
Maybe. Hopefully they learn from World War II, because, I mean, the Nazis, there were some dissenters, but there weren't many, and those that did were usually squashed pretty quick. And another thing, too, that was pointed out to me is that the SA, once they weren't no longer used, and it was during the Night of the Long Knives, and the leaders of the SA, the upper brass essentially, all got taken out, and so they got assimilated into the SS. So that's one thing that, I don't know. I think there would be a philosophical conflict for all of them at some point, but if it's not happening for most of them, or if most of them are going along with what the government says at the critical stage at the beginning of the coup, then most of the damage will be done, I think, by then. Because say they round everybody up, and then after the fact, all the males are rounded up. All able-bodied males are taken care of, and then the police are like, "Oh shoot, maybe we shouldn't be doing this." By then, I think it's too late. So
see here, it was possible to do because Germany was smaller. America's pretty big.
Yeah, America's huge.
Yeah, right. So that might happen in, let's say, New York or Boston.
Yeah, but the word would spread.
So somewhere in Texas or somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Would get the word, and they would start preparing for it.
Those would be the hot spots, I think. Would be Texas, the Midwest, and then Cali, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so my point here is that I don't think that they would be able to control the whole nation.
Yeah,
there would be word would get out, and then there would be a red line. The red line or a firewall would be created,
where it's like, okay, we have to get ready, they're coming, type of thing. Yeah.
And I think it's something very similar to what happened during the voting during the last election.
What was that?
Really, for Trump, for the general election, the presidential general election in 2016. If you look at the states, Hillary was winning. Not all the counts were coming in. We had to wait, but Hillary was winning, and it looked like Trump was actually going to lose. But it was Pennsylvania, it was Michigan, it was Wisconsin, it was the Midwest that got him in.
Yeah,
right.
It was.
So something very similar could happen, where it's the Midwest that saves the country.
Yeah, that's the heartland, man. That's the heartland of America.
That's what I'm saying. Is that it's about as apple pie as it gets.
Yeah, for sure.
So. You could have, FEMA camps, or compliance in the Eastern Seaboard area and maybe even the West Coast, but I don't think you're going to get compliance in Middle America, Texas. Yeah. No way. And it's like, and then so they'll try to control the East and the West Coast. They won't be able to control the Midwest, and then the Midwest will push back and kick them out. But hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, our citizenry needs to actually stop talking and start acting. Mm-hmm. So I would think, and I don't. It's almost to the point. Almost, all right? Not quite, but it's almost to the point where we need to actually pull down those 5G towers before they get too many.
Are they making them in New York? Because I haven't kept up with it the last day or two, and I mean, what I can tell is in England it's getting serious in terms of them building them, but I haven't seen. Well, actually, that's not true. I did see that. I think it was in the Netherlands they burned them down.
We don't see anyone destroying property in the New York area. Mm-hmm. They are putting them on buildings. That's for sure. You can see them. You can see them on the buildings. They're like hopping from one building to another. So that's happening. But they're not. No one's destroying the properties. They're primarily because it's hard to get to the rooftop. how you going to get to the roof tower? You have to go through the lobby and you have to go up the stairs, and
Yeah.
unless you have a citizen, or a someone that's living in the building that's willing to tear it down,
Yeah.
at night, which would be cool. But but
Rorschach.
so but in areas that are more rural or more suburban, then it's much easier to tear down.
Yeah.
But
not
in
that
New
we are
York,
condoning
it'd be
that,
hard.
because we are not.
Yeah, but it would be cool. But it's if they here's my case on it. If they are putting something up that can hurt your body, all right, by affecting your immune system, which there's some data that shows that. But if they're putting up something that is eroding your ability to be a free citizen, it is our right and obligation to tear it down. Because if someone is going to put something up in the front of your house that's going to harm you and your family, isn't it your right and your obligation to tear it down?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So, how's that any different? If they put it on, let's say, a private, right on the sidewalk, where it's public property, but the beaming technology of whatever they're putting up affects your children.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope it doesn't come to that.
Or make it even worse. They have the beaming technology plus a drone flying right over your home, watching you 24/7.
Well, they got drones in England that they're using to catch people out and about. So
yeah, it's just wrong. So just because they do it, here's the point. Just because they do it doesn't mean they should. Yeah. And the citizenry should not allow it. But what's happening is we're becoming complacent and just say, well, we don't have any power. No, you do have power. You can. I
saw Paul. I maybe next COVID roundtable, I'll see if I can dig up the tweet. But I saw this tweet. It's from a young female. I don't know, college student or something. But she basically was saying the same thing you just said. That, well, the opposite really. That, like, what are we gonna do? I don't have any power. And dude, it had thousands of retweets and favorites, like tens of thousands. And I'm like, yo, what are you guys talking about? And I just said, like, yo, that's not me. Like, I know I have some power. And that's just such a terrible way to think. And it's what they want, too. What these people who want to make all these decisions for us want is for no one to be thinking critically.
I think that the true revolution is going to be coming not from the young, which is usually what happens.
It's backwards, dude.
Yeah, but it's going to come from the Gen Xers. Because the Gen Xers, a lot of them were raised on death metal. It was Metallica and Megadeth and these types of bands, Anthrax and and all these bands that
pun intended.
Right. But the thing is that these bands had an energy and that in adolescence it created this kind of like
angst,
this anger. So okay, now the anger went away, but it's dormant. Because it was produced in adolescence.
Oh, you're getting Jungian on me.
Yeah. So what's going to happen here is that the Gen Xers are going to see that their wealth has been taken away from them and their civil liberties have been taken away from them, and that adolescence is going to kick in, and all those hours of listening to Metallica or going to their concerts, it's going to kick in, and they're going to start getting violent. Meanwhile, some of the younger generation, it's a more pop. It's more like pop, like Taylor Swift and
hip hop too.
Hip hop, too. But even rap, hip hop's a little different than rap, but even rap is a little, has that anger in it.
Yeah, definitely.
So even that crowd that's listened to that is going to kick in and say, hell no, we're going to do something. And so it's like the speed metalists and the rappers.
The outcasts, right?
Yeah, that are going to bring back this country because they're going to say, fuck no, this is not going to happen. Because that's what we listened to when we were young. So I think that the revolution is that I'm talking about the people that are going to try to stop the Faucis and this Agenda 21 and erosion of our civil liberties and forced
China
vaccinations.
apologists.
It's gonna it's gonna be Gen X. That's our. It's like that's the X. Know what you're not doing.
That's what they do in Japan. That's their one of their nonverbals. It just means no, or we're closed.
Right.
Kind of funny.
Right. So when I was at Nissan, the term they used, they didn't do this, but they did something similar. They did. They said NG, no go, no go, no go, Paul-san, no go.
You were in Japan?
Yeah, I lived in Japan for a year and a half. But
wow, that's awesome. Where in Japan? Mainland or?
It was mainland. It was Yokohama and Tokyo.
Oh, nice.
I was working for Nissan on the Pathfinder program.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was during my automotive engineering days. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I was in the studio. Working with the designers with the clay, and then we were doing surface modeling, and then we transfer that over to the different engineering departments for packaging, and then I had to work with the manufacturing engineers. So I was working in Japan, and then for a year and a half, and then we transferred over the project back to the United States because the Pathfinder is the SUV platform, which was being manufactured in Tennessee.
Okay.
So the Detroit engineers during the early development worked in Japan, and then we would take all that knowledge and transfer it over to the United States for manufacturing in Tennessee. But I enjoyed it. It was cool, and things change in industries. During that time was when there was a lot of technology transfer that was going to India. So very high paying jobs were starting to, be cut. And, I saw this just constant lowering of the industry in Michigan. So I decided to go into finance and go to New York, but that's a different path, like London Real.
Come back to London Real.
Yeah. But London Real, he never did that. He just, learned the engineering and then went right to finance.
Yeah, he
didn't practice engineering. Yeah, he didn't practice engineering. And you can learn a lot about this country and its capabilities when you engineer and manufacture things, and the importance of that and all the economic clustering that takes place because of that. So I kind of miss my automotive days. I love cars, but and I enjoyed finance, but now I'm doing the medicine thing. But I miss those days actually. There's something about working with clay and doing the CAD and
oh wow, that's awesome.
Seeing
the whole nine. That's great.
So I started my career in automotive doing CAD CAM. So drawing three-dimensional parts and then designing the molds. Primarily the molds were injection molds, plastic molds, but I also did stamp die design, and then just watching it being made on a CNC machine.
Yeah.
You're cutting the tool, so we're making the cutter pass, so we design the part, and then we're designing the mold and then cutting the metal, either aluminum or steel.
How big were the teams that you worked on when you worked for Nissan? Like, how big was your team, like in just a given day, normal day?
My team was about 20 people in our engineering team. But to do a whole vehicle, you need about 450 engineers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about car making.
No, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I could, if I just had a garage and I had enough tools, I could easily design and build my own car. No, from scratch.
Maybe a project for retirement, huh?
Yeah. Well, I've wanted to maybe make design and make a car, because that's what happened with what was it, the Viper, Chrysler Viper, that was made in someone's garage.
Whoa,
Was a
really?
prototype, and
I gotta look that up.
And then Chrysler, it was to compete with the Corvette. It was there.
Wow.
It was Chrysler's version of the Corvette, but it was done in someone's garage.
I hope that guy got paid. Did that guy get paid?
I'm trained to do that.
Did the guy who made the Viper, the Viper, did he get paid?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was part of it. He was part of the team that launched that whole vehicle. So, but I think actually the Viper is a cooler car than the Corvette. But the Corvette, it's got huge brand recognition.
Brand name,
yeah. That it was hard, and same thing with the Mustang. It has huge brand recognition. But yeah, I miss those days, and I can kind of see someday making it's like Tesla. Tesla's a cool concept. With
ridiculous concept when you understand how difficult it is to get into the car industry.
Yeah. No, he's doing a pretty good job, but he's taking the tech side, the California tech, and is trying to apply it to automotive. He's missing the boat on something. There's not enough. The surfaces on his cars aren't sexy enough.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah. There's something about the design that's missing. The powertrain concept is a great idea, and they're starting to make Formula E cars where they go at 200 miles an hour. Oh, yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, they can make they can make these cars go fast. But there's something about his designs that are just not. Where is the Corvette or the Mustang in the model line?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the Cybertruck, but where's the Mustang? You know what I mean? Or where's the Viper? That's where automotive is.
The Bay Magnet.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the Cybertruck, the Cyberpunk truck is going to be the Bay Magnet. Maybe it will be. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but but I just don't see it.
Maybe out in the backwoods somewhere, in the rural America.
Right. So in parting, so I want the people on my channel to subscribe to you and to hear your content and all the different publications that you're doing. So what's the best way to reach you and see your content?
Definitely, Paul. Appreciate that, man. I'm on YouTube. That's my principal place that I'm putting any productive output. But I do use Twitter too. One Addy Ads, ONEADDYADDS, and we can put all in the description box. But I just made a Facebook a couple weeks ago, and I'm still kind of learning how to use it. I don't get as many traffic on there as my other places. You got a Facebook, Paul?
Yeah. I get a lot of traffic, but the only thing I'm posting lately is just links to the to the YouTube.
That's typically what I do is I'll just post the links, but I have been also posting full videos too. Like I put our chat up there, our first chat up there on my Facebook too, just in case people do that and would prefer to watch it on Facebook. But most of the traffic in terms of videos is obviously here on YouTube. So, but yeah, I got interviews with a Scotland Yard detective, with an ex-con, as I said, 2 ex-cons actually, an author, another author from Nevada who writes about psychology and intersexual dynamics, an author from Colorado who writes about power structures. So yeah, got some cool interviews, and hopefully, one of those piques some interest in your audience, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what I'll do is I'll package this, put it on YouTube, then I'm going to promote it on Twitter, Facebook, and my LinkedIn account. I have a pretty big LinkedIn account, actually.
Okay.
And I get actually more traffic from the LinkedIn than from Facebook.
Really? I got to make one of those. I'll make one and add you, because I've never made one before. And I don't know, I guess I wasn't sure if I wasn't going to be in finance or business officially. I didn't really think to make one, but I'll make one.
Well,
Fuck it.
it's strange because, normally, you try to be professional on LinkedIn, but then, I'm throwing these F-bombs, videos, or C-bombs, to a particular individual that lives in New York. But, but it's funny because, it's taboo to do, but people find it as it's genuine, And I think that maybe that's why. But I get a lot of people commenting from LinkedIn, a lot. And that was my primary way of sharing my content when my channel on YouTube was so low. I mean,
Really?
I only had 500 or 700 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was and it was more of a diary to save for people.
Definitely.
But
and just
that's why I was leveraging LinkedIn early on.
I should do that because it's just another channel or avenue to get more eyeballs, really. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'll add you too, and I won't do it necessarily right away or at all if you don't want to, but if you want to share the file with me too, and then in a few days I could upload our video to my channel too, and likewise too with the collabs we did.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. So what we probably could do is I was gonna try to premiere it tonight.
Okay.
But I can send you the source file if you want, and then you can upload it to your channel and premiere it or publish it or however you want to do it anytime you want.
Let's do it on your channel first, and then I just want it on my channel at some point, so it's a reference, so people know that I did that with you. Because there will be people in the future who come to my channel who don't necessarily know who you are. So that way, when they do look at my channel and maybe it piques their interest, they click on it and they can see you too. But just in terms of the views, I think it would be better if you premiered it on your channel first, and then after the initial wave of views comes, maybe in a few days, then I can put it on mine.
Okay. Now, usually these video files are larger.
Yeah.
So I can share a Dropbox link to you
to
download.
That works. Okay. That's usually how I do it. I usually do Google Drive or Dropbox.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of Google, so I don't do Google Drive, but I'll do Dropbox.
Yeah, I should switch.
I was an early adopter of Dropbox, so I was able to get a ton of free space because I kept on telling people, go to Dropbox.
You got grandfathered in.
Yeah, and I just got a ton of extra space because of it.
Yeah, it just gets more expensive, doesn't it? It seems to the mass cloud storage.
Unless you're an early adopter.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, thank you very much for coming
Paul.
On the channel.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I enjoy talking to you, and I want to help promote your channel because of the work that you're doing, and I enjoy those roundtable discussions that you have.
And check those out, anybody listening. We got another one this weekend, and Paul's going to be on, as far as I know.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I missed the last one because I was moving and I didn't have internet connection. On top of that, I accidentally double booked. I was on a Michael Deacon's show. And now you're in the new studio, yeah? Yeah. So, now I'm working out the bugs,
Yeah.
But it was, I like those round tables, and I actually, I talked to you, after, I talked to you yesterday, saying that I apologize for missing that.
No worries.
I really like those. I like the idea of having a group of people sharing their ideas, and I think actually a lot of people that watch it, they like the little sparring that happens.
Oh yeah,
it's friendly. It's friendly sparring. It's friendly. All right, it's friendly. But I think we do have a good chemistry on that round table of the four of us.
Yeah, I think so.
And we all have something to contribute, and we're all doing this for the right reasons. We want to help people, and we're trying to get to the bottom of things, and that's that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it, Paul.
So everyone that's watching this, please go to your channel, and all of the links are going to be in the description box, and I will share you this video on Dropbox, and you can upload it whenever you want.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah, no problem.
Cheers.
So that's done recording, and it will. What time is it? What time is it right now?
Oh, give me a second. 9:30. So it's 12:30 for you, right?
12:30. Okay, so I'll probably premiere it at about 2 o'clock, 2:30.
Okay.
And then for the midnight owls.
Definitely.
and the
Englanders.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then you can
And the Asians.
get to and you'll be able to get the link from Dropbox. I'll send it to your email box.
Okay. Sounds good, Paul.
All right.
Have a good night, brother.
All right, later.